Hello gems, welcome back to the VTuber Voices podcast. I'm your host Syafire, and today we're actually going to be talking about the future of the VTuber Voices podcast. We haven't really had any solo episodes where it's just been me and you guys yet, but I just want to talk a little bit about my feelings with how this podcast is going, how it started, maybe tell you guys a little bit of the story and where my emotions are with it right now, because I'm not really sure what direction I want to take this podcast. So I started this podcast, I believe around 3-ish months ago is when I think the first post of the episodes were maybe in May. So January, February, March, May, April, May, June, July, August, 5-ish months ago. And when I started it, one of my things was I started growing a ton as a content creator. For those who don't really know my backstory, I grew from 0 to 10,000, over 10,000 subscribers in 1 year on YouTube. We're coming up about on my 1 year YouTube anniversary, and this is all from, I've been streaming for 4 to 5 years over on Twitch. If you guys aren't following me on Twitch, I'd really appreciate the support. My name is Syafire over there as well. And when I became a VTuber about a year ago. I became a VTuber, there's still very new stuff, and I was like, I gotta be first mover for some of this stuff. And for those who aren't familiar with the term first mover, it kind of means none of the thing really exists yet, so you might have an advantage by being the first mover. So that's kind of initially what this podcast was, is you know what, I would love to do a really cool VTuber podcast, and I could be first mover because there's nothing really out there like this yet. That being said, I started the VTuber Voices podcast, and I started interviewing lots of really, really cool guests, like Spats, Pren, 𝐂𝐻𝐿, Fia, Girl DM, and many, many more really cool people. And it was really awesome. I really, really enjoyed it. I learned a lot from them. I know you guys learned a ton from them. But let me just talk a little bit about something that I deal with that I know a lot of you guys, I'm sure, deal with, especially as content creators and streamers. One of the things I deal with is something called anticipation anxiety. And anticipation anxiety is kind of when, leading up to an event, you get really worked up, and sometimes it can really take over your whole mentality. And I really struggle with interviews, because when I do interviews, I always have to deal with this anticipation anxiety, especially if it's people I don't know that well, or people I'm meeting kind of for the first time, or of course somebody that I look up to, somebody that's a lot more known than I am. And that's been really hard for me to deal with, energy, putting my body and my mind through that pretty much every single time I would do an episode of the VTuber Voices podcast. So we still have a few episodes. VTuber Senpai's episode was awesome. He's on for our next season. So I'm editing that. I will be posting it as a full, probably 45 to an hour long episode, maybe even longer than that. Edited, of course, but on the channel and on Buzzsprout, which is where I post everything else for you guys to get these podcasts on Spotify, etc. And also with 𝐒𝐿, she's another VTuber. We have the interview, and I'm doing one more this Monday. So after that, I'm really not sure what I want to do with the VTuber Voices podcast. I don't want to make any harsh decisions. I don't want to just say it's over, because I don't know exactly what's going on, if I need to take a break or if I need to just move on from it as a creator, because there's other things I really want to do. I started my channel as a VTuber, but I don't want to just be known as a VTuber. There's so many more skill sets and things I like to offer, and I feel like this podcast has been a little bit limiting for me, because while I enjoy interviewing VTubers, there's also a lot of other people that I really want to talk to. And kind of knew that when I started this podcast. It started off as the Virtual Voices podcast, but that name was taken by some other randos, so I was like, okay. Well, I guess we'll do VTuber Voices, and that'll make it easier for VTubers to find. But a Virtual Voices probably would have been better if it wasn't taken, because it would have been more overarching, so I could interview other people. But just with anticipation anxiety there, and with not being really sure what direction I'm taking things right now, I think it's just going to be best to take a break from the podcast. So there's going to be this episode today, and there's usually we release episodes every Monday and Friday, but this is right now I'm just going to release the full episodes as I finish them. And I did take a poll on YouTube to see what you guys were interested in, and you know what, I really appreciate your guys' feedback and taking the time, but I finally decided it doesn't really matter. It does matter what you guys think, and I want to help you guys and serve you guys, but it also doesn't matter, because if I don't enjoy it, then what's the point, right? So, and I'm not saying like I totally don't enjoy the podcast anymore, but it's just been a lot of weight on me lately. Like it's just been this extra thing that I feel like has been kind of holding me down a little bit. And it may not seem like that on the outside, but with content creators, you know, there's a lot that goes on internally with us. There's a lot of things, and I just want to encourage you guys to know that it's okay. Like if you're moving on or you want to change your content, as long as you're not changing it like every single week, you know, because then there might be like a deeper problem there with you, or I don't want to say with you, but like maybe your mental health or something. And I'm just trying to be touchy with the words I use here because I deal with a lot of that stuff, so I totally get it. I'm very empathetic to it. But but if there's something like I've been doing this podcast for like 5 months and I've been doing VTubing for it's getting close to more than a year now. There's just some changes that I want to make. And one of the hardest parts is that I think for a lot of content creators and myself especially is, how do we know that we're just moving on, or are we giving up, right? How do you tell the difference between giving up something or just choosing to move on or do something different? And that's something I've struggled with and something I'm still learning about myself. So I wanted to be super open and genuine with you guys with this episode because I don't know what else I want to do. Like I said, I don't want to just call it quits, and I don't want to just be done, but I don't and maybe this is me just not letting go fully by saying I'm just taking a break. I don't really know. It's a struggle, man. So I'm just gonna stop the podcast for a while, and if I feel like I want it to come back, great. But if I'm like, you know what, I'm good, then it might be the end. So I will do my best to communicate with you guys, you know, a few months from now or whatever the case may be. But you can still expect some more episodes coming out. Of course, three more guests after this, because we're getting all those. Well, we have 2 recorded, and then we're gonna record the new one. But yeah, I don't know if I have much else to say on the topic. But thank you guys so much. This has been a really fun journey. It's been a wild ride getting to know a ton of really great people. So thank you to all of our guests who've been on. Thank you to all of our listeners. Thank you to everybody in Twitch chat who shows up to the live podcast and asks us really good questions to make it what it is. I just deeply appreciate it. So happy whatever day it is for you. It's Friday for me. Thank you guys so much for everything, and I look forward to chatting with y'all on the next few podcast episodes. But then after that, I guess we'll see where the wind takes us. All right, have a lovely rest of your day, my friends, and I will see you next time on the Sapphire Star. Goodbye.